Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Evening Devotion. Tonight we're going to be reading out of Job 7:12. Am I a sea or a whale that thou settest to watch over me? Oops, wrong one. There we go. Oh, we were in the wrong spot. Should have been starting here. Am I a sea or a whale that thou settest to watch over me? That was our verse. Let's go up a few here. Let's turn verse 7. Oh, remember that my life is a breath. My eye will never again see good. The eye of him who sees me will see me no more. While your eyes are upon me, I shall no longer be. As the cloud disappears and vanishes away, so he who goes down to the grave does not come up. Can't come back from the grave until the Lord resurrects everybody. All this stuff of talking to ghosts and all that doesn't happen. These fortune tellers and that doesn't happen. Verse 10, he shall never return to his house, nor shall his place know him any more. A lot of people get all up in arms about that. Well, the Bible makes it clear. The Lord only, in one instance in the Bible, allowed somebody to talk to somebody who had passed on. And it wasn't a very good experience. The witch of Endor learned a very hard lesson that day. Verse 11, therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Since I only have one life, I'm going to get it out now. Am I a sea or a sea serpent that you should set guard over me? When I say my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions. I had a dream last night I couldn't wake up from, actually. Took a lot of effort. So that my soul chooses strangling and death rather than my body. I loathe my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone, for my days are but a breath. And a very famous statement from Job. What is man that you should exalt him, that you should set your heart on him, that you should visit him every morning and test him every moment? Job was in dire straits here, but he makes an interesting statement. This was a strange question for Job to ask of the Lord. He felt himself to be too insignificant to be so strictly watched and chastened. Am I something big like the sea or like the sea serpent that you should set a guard over me? Who am I? That's what he was asking ultimately. Who am I that you should regard me? And he hoped that he was not so unruly as to need to be so restrained. Am I this out of control that you have to do this? The inquiry was natural for one surrounded with such insupportable miseries. But, after all, it is capable of a very humbling answer. Job was upset. That's why he was asking these questions. Is it true man is not the sea? It is true man is not the sea. But he is even more troublesome and unruly than the sea. He is. The sea obediently respects its boundary. And though it be but a belt of sand, it does not overlap the limit. Mighty as it is, it hears the divine hitherto, and when most raging with tempests, it respects the world, or the word. I'm struggling today. But self-willed man defies heaven and oppresses earth. Neither is there any end to this rebellious rage. I guess man is worse than the sea, so to speak. The sea, obedient to the moon, ebbs and flows with ceaseless regularity, that'd be high tide and low tide, and thus renders an active as well as a passive obedience. But man, restless beyond his sphere, sleeps within the lines of duty. Indolent where he should be active, he will neither come nor go at the divine command, but solely prefers to do what he should not, and to leave undone that which is required of him. Every drop in the ocean, every beaded bubble, and every yeasty foam flake, every shell and pebble feel the power of law and yield or move at once. Oh, that our nature were but 1,000th part as much conformed to the will of God. We call the sea fickle and false, but how constant it is. Since our fathers' days, and the old time before them, the sea is where it was, beating on the same cliffs to the same tune. We know where to find it. It forsakes not its bed, and changes not in its ceaseless boom. But where is man? Vain, fickle man. Can the wise man guess by what folly he will next be seduced from his obedience? We need more watching than the billowy sea, and are far more rebellious. Lord, rule us for thine own glory. Amen. Makes a very interesting statement here. Interesting argument. We are more fickle than the sea. We are tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine, with every fear and emergency, with every declaration of war. Look here and look there. You can't pin man down in any kind of consistency to save your life unless it's one that is ruled by the Lord and is walking in obedience. That person is very stable. You can set your watch by people like that. If the people of God are anything, they're consistent. And this is a big thing with God, consistency, integrity. One thing about integrity is being consistent. Consistent in your behavior, consistent in what you say and do, consistent in how you say and do it. If you can't tell a person or know a person by certain attributes, there may be something wrong. If people can't say, well, there's certain behaviors that I know of this person, I can rely on them to be the same every time. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that person is still the same. Yet most people we can't say that about. One day they're this, one day they're that. One day they're here, one day they're there. I think it's one of the big things that God does when he saves us, when we're born again, is part of that change is settling us down so that we're not raging up and falling down, crying and moaning and then happy and everything. I've talked to people in conversations where they're perfectly fine, talking perfectly normal, and then instantly tears. And then just as instantly back to normal. I would think that the Lord would settle their spirit more than that. But I've talked to a lot of people that are like that. They instantly go to tears, or they instantly go to anger, or they instantly go to sadness, or they instantly go to happiness, or they instantly change constantly over every little thing. We need to be more consistent. And that consistency would be being mostly the same way most of the time. To the point that people can see irregularity in us. Just like the sea, the tides come and the tides go. The storm raises it up, but it stays where it's supposed to. See, we can learn lessons from the very environment we live in, from the world around us, because the world around us obeys. Another part in Job, he talks about the lightning follows its path. We can trace that path. We can see that. I did a whole playlist on Job, and we cover that. You can see the path. That they have ways of taking pictures of it now. And you can see the positive ion path, and that lightning will follow that path down to the ground, or a tree, or a telephone pole, or a car, or a person, or something. The street, manhole cover. You ever see a manhole cover get struck by lightning? It's amazing. It turns it red hot. Or like the one guy, the pocket watch in his pocket, and the lightning bolt went through it from one end to the other, but it went right down his pants and burned his underwear off at the same time. That poor guy, I think, has been struck more by lightning more than anyone. He holds the record. Our environment we can learn something from our environment. We can learn what nature tells us. It tells us about God. And the Lord commands them to do that, and they do that. The Lord commands the planets and the stars and the asteroids and the meteors and the comets, and they all do what they're supposed to do. We should be so good as to be 1/10 of that, and to obey the Lord and do what he says to do. It's very simple. We're too fearful or too lazy. But for those of us that do listen, for those of us that start down that path of obedience, for those of us who start to do what the Lord tells us to do, even if we don't like it, even if we don't feel like it, all of a sudden we're stirred by an uncontrollable desire to get up and to do what the Lord expects of us. You can even call it As a desire, you can even call it a calling. And we have to answer. We can't help it. We have to respond. We can't help it because we've been changed. We're different. Like we talked about this morning, we're different. We can't help but respond because we know this is what the Lord expects of us. This is what the Lord wants of us. This is what the Lord desires of us, is to be like his creation, which we are, consistent. No more, no less, but to do what he has given us to do. So easy, so simple. But for most people, that's impossible. You know, the homosexuals and the transgenders, they all like, well, we were made this way. God made us this way. He doesn't make mistakes. Well, that's a cool argument, but it doesn't work here, because if God doesn't make mistakes, what's wrong with you? Because you weren't made this way. You've left your appointed position. You've gone on to do what you want to do and have not obeyed the Lord. If you were born a female, you're female, and you were given a certain position. If you go outside of that, you're disobeying God. Just in the very act of being a human. Same with the males. The transgender, same thing. If you were born a male, you're a male. If you were born a female, you're a female. People don't like that talk, but they don't stop to realize they call themselves Christians, yet disobey God's very word. Disobey the fact that they were made this way. You may not like that, but that's the way he made you. You may not like being a man. Too bad. You were made a man. You may not like being a woman. Too bad. You were made a woman. So if you want to call yourself a Christian, you must obey the position that he has put you in, because that's what you were called to be. And not just them. I'm not just picking on them. There are so many out there who have gone off into things that they're not supposed to be involved in, disobeying God, because they disobey the position that they've been put in, what they've been given. They go outside of that to do something else, to become something else, trying to change themselves. Surgeries, modifications, all these weird things that they get into, and they think, oh, this is perfectly normal. And they call themselves Christians. You are no more a Christian than an atheist. The atheist has more faith, technically. But they do this, yet they disobey God. Okay, well, if you're not obeying the Lord, how can you call yourself that? You worship something, but it's not God. And that they keep going on about this. Well, it must be you must be a certain level of obedience. You must obey his word, obey the calling, obey what we've been given. If this is my position, then this is my position. He tells you, if you're a slave and you get saved, don't seek to be released from slavery. Honor God in your slavery. If you're in prison, you get saved. Don't seek to be released from prison. Honor God in that situation. You know, some of the greatest prison ministries have been started by prisoners, because they realize this. This is where the Lord put me. I'm going to be effective here. We even have a record in the Bible of a prostitute. God called her righteous. She worked within where she was because she was most effective there. That doesn't mean go and be a prostitute and be saved. But who's going to listen to anyone else other than somebody who understands what they're involved in? That person has more credibility than anyone else. We struggle with these things. We struggle with these understandings. We struggle to obey. Till we come to the place where we start to realize, wait a minute, why do I fight him on this? And look at the troubles there are. Instead, let me do what he wants me to do. Let me do what he desires me to do. I don't need to go search it out. It's right in front of me. All I have to do is do it. If you have a husband or a wife, you have a family. That's what you've been given. Do it. Simple. But we're always striving, trying to go outside of that. Well, we were never called to go outside of what we've been given, but instead to work within it. We are most effective within what the Lord has given us. So let us use that as our blessing. Let us consider that our calling and glorify him in it, wherever it is, whatever it is. So don't be so quick to seek a position outside of where you are, but instead find out what you can do within it. Find out what the Lord has for you to do within where you are. I can tell you, you can get a whole lot more done if you would not fight him, but instead work where you're at. Because the mission field is right in front of you. It's right around you at all times. And that applies to every one of us. So we've got to stop putting our eyes on things that the Lord hasn't given to us. Because the more we fight to get that, the more we get tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine, the more we get caught up in things that we shouldn't be caught up in, the more we become deceived by our own actions because we're disobeying God and his word instead of doing it and following it and being what he's given us to be. You'd be surprised how much more peace, how much more joy, and how much happier you'll be if you do what the Lord has given you to do and obey his word in that calling. It could be mother, it could be father, it could be sibling, it could be uncle, grandfather, aunt, grandma, nephew, niece, teacher, police officer, congressman, anybody. You're more effective where you are than you realize. So let's not disobey God and try to fight to do something that we weren't given to do. And we may feel a desire to do these things, but we've got to identify whether or not that's an actual calling. I have a desire to be a pastor. But the excuse given is, I think the Lord is calling me to do this because I have a desire to do it. Well, hold on a second. It may not be that you have a desire to do these things when he gives you the calling. It may be something you don't want to do, but you can't help it. I think that's more of a calling than anything. It's not something you're seeking, but the Lord is swinging you that way in the first place. I'll give you a great example of what I'm doing here. I was shutting my channel down. I was a vlogger for a while. And I never got over like 33 subscribers. And I was like, this is going nowhere. I'm tired of social media. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I deleted everything and I turned everything off. And all I did was just watch videos with that account. And I decided I'm not going to do with this anymore. I'm getting rid of all this. I didn't want to do what I'm doing now. I had no desire to do this. But this was something that was very strongly impressed upon me. And so I was like, well, I don't know what to do, but we'll see. So I just started down this road, and here we are. I'm creeping up on 5 years later. I think the people who have that desire and can't help it, that I want to do this, I want to do that, I think that may be a little disingenuous because I think it's more their desire instead of God's calling. I think the calling comes on a person that they don't really have a desire to do that. And all of a sudden it's like, the Lord's leading me this. I don't want to do this, but this is where he's leading me. So he'll make me effective where I am, even though I don't want to do it. And I'll be honest with you, there's days I wake up, I don't want to do a video. There's times I get up and I don't feel the strength to do a video. I don't feel the words. I don't feel that strong push. But I get up and I do it anyway because that's what I have to do. That's what the Lord has set before me to do. And you know what? As soon as I hit play or hit record, it all changes. As soon as I open the app and see the scriptures, it all changes. And the words come flowing and the desire flows in. It's amazing. And there's still times, even now, after all this time, I wonder, Lord, why are you having me do this? I'm not that good at it. And my memory is terrible. And I struggle. You heard that as soon as I started this video. I was stumbling over my words. Yet, here we are. Yet, here I am. Yet, if you've been paying attention, I'm not stumbling anymore. The words are flowing effortlessly. Yet when I started, they weren't. Guys, that's not me. This is him. Because when you do what he's given you to do, he strengthens you and makes you able in ways you can't possibly imagine. How many of you have been positively affected by what we're doing here? Listen, it's not me. It is not me. I'm not a good orator. I'm not a good speaker. It's not me. It's him. And not because I desired to do this, because he made me able to do this and put this task before me, and here we are. Each one of you has a very similar scenario happening in your life. Don't go outside what he's given you, but instead look for what he has placed in your path and do that. And you will be amazed at how much happier you'll be, how much less stress you will have. Don't think that you're called to do what we're doing here. This is a hard thing. A lot of people did this and no longer do it. A lot of people started doing this in 2019 and 2020 and have gotten way off the rails. What we're doing here is very hard, and you shouldn't choose this so quickly, because we're judged with a greater strictness. This is something to be taken very seriously. Even just doing YouTube videos should be taken very seriously. But it may be he's got you something right in front of you in your workplace, in your local church, outside of your church, in your home. You never know. You never know until you just let the Lord speak. Let Him show you what it is. Because it may be something that you don't want to do, and it may be right in front of you and you don't realize it. But I can tell you that's the best, most effective way you can serve Him, is right there what He's given you. And it's all around us. How does the sea serve the Lord? It stays within its borders. How does the mountain serve the Lord? It stands tall above everything else. How does the sun serve the Lord? It sits there and it rotates and provides heat. How does the earth serve the Lord? He stays within His orbit. You can see where I'm going with this. And the Bible confirms, especially the book of Job. So don't be so quick to get outside of what the Lord has given you. It may be that the ministry you're looking for is the one you're not seeing, and it's right next to you. Because every one of us has some type of ministry. And for most of us, the majority of us, it's right there where we're standing. We just don't know it. Because we're setting our eyes on things the Lord doesn't have for us. And we're using our desires as an excuse to seek out something that isn't ours. Am I a sea or a whale that thou settest a watch over me? Job asked a very interesting question, not realizing what he was doing, because the sea and the whale, they do what they're supposed to do. Job doesn't. We don't as humans. And his question was yes. The answer to his question was yes. The Lord does have to set a watch over us. Look at the world today and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The blessing of the Lord is right there. Don't try so hard to look for it, but instead just wait on Him. And He'll reveal it to you, and then you'll realize it's been here the whole time. And that will be the greatest blessing you could possibly imagine. I love you all very much. I bless you all in Jesus' name, and I'll see you in the next video.